Hello, today, I'd like to share a story about the secrets hidden beneath the cold silence of a seemingly perfect smart home. On the surface it appeared to be the height of peace, but inside, there was no human warmth, only the constant, watchful gaze of machines. Much like how I once learned to uncover hidden stories between the pages of library books, I will share the record of those tense few days, and how I pieced together the dangerous puzzle of that house. The invitation had arrived on a tablet screen, a digital link sent by my son-in-law. It felt strangely impersonal, a stark contrast to the handwritten letters Jessica used to leave on my kitchen table. When she was a girl, I looked around my own living room one last time. It was a chaotic, beautiful mess of half-read novels, dog-eared pages, and the faint, comforting scent of old paper. It was a home where time left its fingerprints on every surface. Eco-Village was miles away, both in distance and in spirit. As the taxi wound through the impeccably manicured gates, I felt a strange prickle of unease. The architecture here wasn't designed for messy living. It was designed for efficiency. Everything was seamless, white, and soundless. I gripped my suitcase filled with tangible, real things and felt like an intruder in a future that hadn't quite asked for me. Jessica had promised that this was the perfect environment for Lucas. She had sounded tired, hurried, and if I were to be honest, a little frightened over the phone. That subtle tremor in her voice was what compelled me to pack my bags. I didn't care about the prestige of the address, or the promises of the gated community. I only cared about the daughter who used to lose herself in picture books and the grandson I barely knew. The car pulled up to a structure that looked less like a home and more like a high-end server room, gleaming and unyielding. I took a long breath, smoothed my coat, and prepared to step into a life that seemed to have no room for dust, for noise, or for the messy, beautiful reality of being human. I reached for the door handle, took a final look at the quiet, sterile street, and walked toward the entrance. The moment I stepped inside, the house welcomed me with a machine's voice. "Welcome, Jessica." The tone pretended warmth, but it held no human heat. All the welcomes I'd learned from a lifetime among books. An offered cup of tea, shoes left at the door, traces of life on the windowsill were absent. This house felt like a neat, erased blank. Jessica took my wrapped gifts at the threshold and forced a smile. The smile was familiar, but fatigue showed before any joy. She was styled from head to nail, but the shadow under her skin didn't vanish. The woman who had once loved late nights at small galleries was not the same now. She worked through nights and still looked perpetually anxious. Her husband appeared from the study and nodded briefly. Daniel carried the same polite, calculated chill I'd seen in his glossy photos. The press-ready image was well assembled. The man in front of me was even more precise. I had a bad feeling that precision could be a net. The living room was wide. The light that filtered through the floor-to-ceiling glass came in measured quantities. Artificial scents floated through the air. I sat and looked at the digital frame displaying pictures of my grandson, Lucas. The frame cycled through images with a steady brightness. Lucas sticking his tongue out one moment, grinning the next. Jessica brought out tea. Her hands trembled faintly. I noted it. "Mom, please stay a bit. I have to check the gallery. I can't watch Lucas today," she said. The words were polite, but her eyes traced an escape route leaving. A burden with a parent is a common human thing, but this felt like more than childcare. It felt like avoidance. That evening Daniel closed himself in the study. Jessica sat beside me, then suddenly covered her wrist and gave a brittle laugh when she lifted her sleeve a little. I saw a pale bruise on her forearm. At first I thought it a bump from a cabinet, but her explanation, she'd banged it on a display, was thin and defensive. I had learned to read lives from small marks, folded page corners, a coffee-stained leaflet, a penciled margin. The bruise was telling a story. "Are you sure you're okay? Let me put something on it," I said. "It's fine, Mom, really don't make a fuss," she snapped. But the fine carried exhaustion and armor. That night the house hummed with perfect quiet. Lucas slept in a small bed by the sofa, breathing in little gusts that barely stirred the air. I walked the living room with my tea. The blue glow of the digital frame turned Lucas's light hair gold for a second, and he looked fragile in that artificial light. I wanted to touch his small hand, but as a grandmother I knew which boundaries to respect. Morning arrived on cue. A soft voice from the house. "Good morning, Margaret." The smart home's politeness was crafted to reassure. On the portal, the system listed Daniel's travel schedule, grocery orders, air quality readings, and a sleep pattern graph for Lucas. The graph showed little awakenings across the nights. When I peeked into Lucas's room, he mumbled in his sleep, "Grandma Blue Button." The phrase struck me as oddly specific. A sleep-talking child could be meaningless, but a blue button? The study was a fortress. The door was always locked and a biometric pad guarded it. Daniel's fingerprints opened it like a key to a secret world. Whoever controlled that room controlled access. A controlled space tends to hide things. I began collecting small details. A faint scuff near the study, the odd scent on papers Daniel carried, temporary notes on the smart screen. In libraries I'd read lives from objects. Here, the house's logs, timestamps, entries, tiny purchases spoke to Lucas. Loved drawing. One day he handed me a sheet with 4 cars in a row, colored blue, red, yellow, green. The childish drawing matched his sleep-talking blue, red, yellow, green. My hand trembled as I folded the paper into my pocket. That sequence could be an accidental coincidence or a code. I found a narrow gap at the base of the study door, like the split on an old book's binding. Reaching in, my fingers brushed a cool metallic button that pulsed. Blue. My heart jumped. The child's words and drawing were not random. The house recorded small utterances, and a child's play had, somehow, become a key. I did not press the button. I photographed the gap and planned to take the image to the police, but domestic complaints often sit at the margins of action. Cybercrime units move only when patterns show. Wait, I needed more evidence. Later I noticed odd items on the grocery list: specialized external hard drives, high-security storage devices, multiple disposable phones. The system logged encrypted transfers at odd hours. Each small record added to the mosaic. I tried to tell Jessica. She pushed me away. "Mom, please don't accuse Daniel. Everyone has faults. You don't need to start trouble." Her voice was genuine. She feared losing what he had built: comfort, status, The life he bought her to challenge him was to risk everything she depended on. So I worked quietly. I used play to gather clues. I noted the house's tiny anomalies. I checked for fingerprints on the study's seams. Machines can be clever. Hands leave traces. The decisive piece turned out to be a toy Lucas called the piggy bank. It was an electronic bank that opened with voice patterns, but inside it hid an external hard drive. The patterns Lucas used to open it were things he'd learned in play, unconsciously repeating his father's cues. The drive contained encrypted files, lists of names, forged passports, offshore accounts, a trail of money. I went to the police. The cybercrime team was skeptical at first, but the photos and the small device were weighty enough to prompt investigation. The process moved slowly. I grew anxious. Daniel might come home at any time. We had to act before he returned. He did come back earlier than expected. He arrived quiet as a summer wind. I decided to act. The living room digital frame hid a lockbox behind it, and I believed Lucas's color sequence: blue, red, yellow, green opened it. The child's drawing had become a key. While Daniel was in the study, I slid the frame off and felt for the dials. I turned them in the child's order, and the lockbox side open. Papers and drives tumbled out. Then I heard him behind me, his voice low and tight. "What are you doing?" I had no time to answer. He grabbed my arm. His grip was cold and hard. We struggled. Lucas began to cry, and the sound cut through the house's perfected silence. The struggle ended when officers pushed through the study door. I'd already contacted the cyber squad. They came in force. Daniel's composure cracked. The documents and drives bore evidence of illicit transactions, identity theft, and overseas money movements. The lockbox's contents blew the facade away. Even trying to keep his cool, his mask had slipped. Jessica watched in a stunned blankness as her husband was handcuffed. She fell into my arms. "Broken, Mom, I'm sorry," she whispered, voice shattering. That night everything felt lost. The house remained still, but the stillness was hollow. Daniel's assets were frozen. The life he'd built collapsed in legal lights. Jessica had lost almost everything. Lucas did not understand why his father was gone. I held him and my daughter. We had lost more than money, security, routine, but we still had each other. We left Eco Village. The house of perfection was cold and impenetrable. Its technology couldn't warm what had been broken. We moved to a modest villa on the outskirts, a place where sunlight and wind entered freely. Gradually, Jessica's laughter returned in small, uneven bursts. Lucas remained quiet at times. His eyes still held brief shadows of tension. Looking back, exposing the truth felt like reading a dense book. You turn pages, follow clues, and only at the end does the pattern reveal itself. I read the traces, collected the fragments, and fit the pieces together. The picture was brutal, but without it we would have been trapped. Eco Village's trees still whispered. The homes remained polished, their automated lights changing the sky's mood to others. The place would look peaceful. To me it had become a smothering veil. Sometimes I watch the distant greenery and think of the child's drawing, the 4 little cars in blue, red, yellow, green and how a child's random play had been the key to everything. It was an odd twist of fate that a child's scribble could unlock a family's salvation. We taped Lucas's drawings to the wall of our small dining room. One page still showed the 4 cars in their colors. I smile when I see it. The simplest mark, an innocent gesture, had turned into a lifeline. I have returned to my books. They comfort me. The incident left me wary of how finely machines record our lives, but also convinced that human silence and human signs, words, bruises, doodles still tell more than any log can claim. At night, Lucas will sometimes ask in a small voice, "Grandma, where is the blue button?" I smooth his hair and say, "It's hidden where we don't need it. What's important is you're safe." His eyes gleam, and I know the truth we found was destructive, but what remained was a stronger kind of love, a warmth no smart home could ever reproduce.